folks, this is another Steampunk Desperado 5-minute review. Book of the week is Last Train of the Kepler-283c, a story collection edited by David Boop and published by Baen Books in 2024. Now, sci-fi or weird westerns have always been one of my favorites, but the real-life confirmation that yes, there are other solar systems has given the field new life, with the idea of pioneers opening up not just new continents, but new worlds. There are two types of story anthologies: the ex post facto type, which collects stories that have already been published, and the bespoke type, in which an editor invites writers to participate. The first kind is a best of collection, and as of such, they are usually pretty good in quality. On the other hand, the bespoke type, they are new works, which is a good thing to promote new work, but they're often of uneven quality because the editor has to deal with whatever he gets. And this collection is one of those. Western science fiction has been long haunted by the ghost of Bat Durston. Now, this is from the very first issue of Galaxy Science Fiction magazine back in 1950. On the back cover was the headline, "You'll Never See It in Galaxy," with a snippet of a hypothetical story in which a Western plot is awkwardly lifted onto the moon, and the hero is the aforementioned gunfighter, Bat Durston. This reinforced the already bad reputation of space westerns, which of course are not all terrible, but the critics were right in a sense because it's really easy to mix your tropes. It can really be a cliche festival. The editor in his introduction acknowledges this fact, but he also cites the example of a good sci-fi western, such as the TV series Firefly, and I have to heartily agree. He then rhapsodizes about the idea of modern stories with strong female leads and also diverse characters, including LGBT, of course. Now, as I was reading the stories, the first few all had female leads, and I was thinking, oh no, are these all girl bosses? I didn't sign up for that. But thankfully, I was wrong. Of the 14 stories within, at least two fell pretty flat for me. These are what I'd call gimmick pieces. One is told in rhyme, and the other was a script for a hypothetical space sequel to the Roy Rogers TV show from the 50s. Two of the stories in particular had progressive messages that were pretty obvious. In one, a gay man fears for his life in a rather socially backward quasi-Western space colony. But I kind of enjoyed it anyway. It was well done, I guess. The other involves a gunfighter who is implausibly hired to lead an anti-monster campaign on a distant planet. I had such a difficult time swallowing the premise, not because it was a woman, just overall how it was structured, that the first time I didn't notice the heavy-handed anti-colonialist moral at the end. That made me like it even less. But the author is a diverse professor of literature with a doctor on her name, so it must be good, right? Now, the other 10 ran from amusing to absorbing. My favorites were David Mack's Living by the Sword, in which a young girl in a frontier world meets a badass female warrior whom she feels an inexplicable connection with, and Mel Todd's Not My Problem, in which a down-on-his-luck salvage specialist ends up having to visit this rather run-down space station, which has for some reason been abandoned. His luck gets even worse. And then there's also Last Train to Clarksville by Steve Miller and Sharon Lee, which is a fun adventure action story. It gets an upvote from me because it borrows the title of a classical song by the Monkees. As a boomer, I appreciate that. The upshot is that Boop is right about the cliches, and unfortunately, some of these stories do fall into that category, though none of them are too terrible. My personal view is that the best spaced westerns take the feeling, the atmosphere, and put those into a sci-fi setting without, going for the cowboy hats and horses thing. Shows like Firefly have done it right. And of course, there's the anime Cowboy Bebop, and in this collection, the best example was Not My Problem. Overall, I'm glad I bought this book and that I read it, especially since there's a shortage of good sci-fi or so-called weird westerns out there. You got to play the cards they deal you. And I salute David Boop for keeping the flame burning. So I'll give this book a B- level review. Recommended, although not really recommended for a newbie. This has been a Steampunk Desperado 5-minute review.